right, Nathan, you got UCF.
Yeah, okay, let me get to the right notes. I have different note tabs here. Okay, so I like UCF. I'll just stay off the jump. I think they're going to be a really good, them and BYU, I think, for the next 5 years. They're going to be the best two of the new four. UCF's recruiting really well. They've even gotten some 5-star athletes for the first time in their history, which is amazing. Those are like diamonds. And their recruiting's doing well. They've got a bunch of transfers in. So the main thing is that this is what stood out to me. Their coach is a winner. Gus Malzahn won at Auburn, and he knows how to win games. So you could argue with his tactics and the way he organizes things, but he knows how to run an offense. The question is going to be how organized is the defense. And I don't know much about their defense. I looked at stats and some history and everything else, but I think it was you, Mark, when you said, or maybe it was you, Robert, when you're talking about the competition they're coming from. The difference between BYU and the other three is they have been playing all the time lower, ECU, and I'm not saying those, because BYU's lost to those schools. I'm not saying they're not good schools, but the competition level is a major step up for everything else in the Big 12. So they're going to really struggle on the road. Anytime they go east, I'm going to say they're going to struggle because they're from Florida. Florida teams generally don't do well going east, or west, I mean. So they're going to struggle. Let's just go over a few of their playmakers. Plumlee's the quarterback, and he's a transfer, but he's won places, and he's got a bunch of stats. I don't need to tell you guys those stats. And then they have a running back called Johnny Richardson, which I saw a bunch of write-ups on. He's starting, and then they've got a 5-star behind him by the name of DeMarcus Bowman that's also going to be going for playing time. So again, I don't know much about their defense. I couldn't find out much about that. That's the thing that's going to struggle. Offenses can win anywhere. Defense is where you're really going to have challenges in the offensive and defensive lines. So they have an easy schedule. It's much easier than anybody else in the Big 12, in my opinion. So I think that they can win 7-8 games with the easier schedule, but I think it's going to be a lot tougher sledding than they might think.
What do you think, Robert?
Yeah, I'm lobby on them for that reason alone. I think this is a lot tougher. You're not playing you're not playing AAC opponents anymore. I think the offense last year was a big question mark. I think they are recruiting well, but I think it's going to take a while to adjust to the new conference. I think this team has definitely deserved to be one of the top teams. I think Gus Malzahn is a coach that can actually take them there. But I think you're going to need more of an adjustment. And I think John Reese Plumlee is not the guy. I don't think he's the guy. I think they need a new quarterback. But I think for this season, I think it'll be okay. Like, his numbers last season were not particular. Like, he never really blew the doors off of anybody last season. And again, you're against the ACC and you can't really, or AAC, and you can't blow up any teams. Like, that's a little concerning to me. Again, he can make it jump up this year, but I think at some point this team will be good. And as you kind of mentioned, I think the Big 12 is going to kind of be a bit of a revolving door with a lot of these teams. I think one year it will be UCF's year, but I just don't think that's this year, though.
That's fair. I also think that they've dug themselves a hole in social media, and everybody wants to beat them. That's not a joke. No. You guys are talking about betting, right?
Yeah,
you guys are talking about betting. People's putting money on a table to say whether somebody's going to win or lose. Right now, the entire league is against two things: the Pac-12 and UCF. Everybody wants to beat UCF because they've come in like idiots socially.
Yep.
They came in and said they're going to win it the first year. It's crazy.
I'm laughing because you're our third guest now, and I think all three have, like, completely unprompted just said UCF on social media is just intolerable, and I heartily second that. So
it's real.
I'm pretty bearish on this team. First of all, they had inordinate good luck. They had 1.9 games of good luck last season, and K Ford also has them regressing 1.7. So when those two metrics match up, it's kind of a rough sign, and they're moving up. Plumlee, I've not really been a believer in him. He had a 90 apex in his second year as a starter. The thing is, the defenses that he's going to play this year are 12 points tougher in Apex given up than what he faced last year. So that 90, which is kind of sketch, can easily just translate to like a low 80s just with the change in opponent. So if I look at, I did a deeper dive on his performance last season versus the G5 defenses. They're no longer in the G5. He had an apex of 121. They played 3 Power 5 defenses last season: Duke, Georgia Tech, and Louisville. In those 3 games, his apex was 6, not 66. 6.
What?
That's like, yeah, Arthur Sitkowski at Rutgers level bad. He'll still be able to run the ball. He ran like a madman when he was at Ole Miss against.
Right.
He ran for over 100 against Bama and Missouri, over 200 against LSU. I just think that this team is literally stuck without a quarterback, and they're going to get shocked by the change in opponent. That especially at quarterback, it's going to be rough. The total is 6.5. The under is paying plus 125. I'm definitely going under on them.
Right.
Having said that, these guys, as weird and jerky as they are, they're kind of taking in a weird way Texas A&M's spot in this conference. And I think once they get the big checks, they're actually going to be pretty good within a couple seasons. Like, oh my gosh,
what a mistake
to let these guys in. Yeah,
Florida. Yeah.
And they're not gonna be scared to spend the money, and they're gonna do whatever it takes to win. So longer term, I'm bullish, but this season I'm bearish. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna take the under on them.
You converted me. I'm taking the under now. Holy cow. I had no idea. See, that's what you guys do and why you're geniuses at it. I don't know the stats. I just watch games. I'm an idiot.
You're very kind. Thank you. All right. Robert, Texas Tech.
Yeah, so Texas Tech is another interesting one for the Big 12. So last year they were 8-5, which isn't bad. They were kind of like a really good team a couple times there. I loved them a lot of kind of spot plays, but they couldn't really get the job done in the big games. I have them as stairs up. They returned Tyler Shuck, which is, again, I can't believe that's how you say his name. That's not how it's spelled, but whatever. The wide receivers are really good, but their defense has lost some people, so that's a bit concerning. But again, I think there's just a lot of mush in the league this year, and I think they can kind of crush a lot of those teams by just outscoring them, right? So I do like them. They lost a couple of close games last year, and I think this year they might be able to finish the deal in some of those games. I don't think they're the top team in the league, but like, could they beat like a Texas or an Oklahoma? I definitely think they could, yeah.
Okay. The defense, we'll see. They were shaky against the pass. That's the head coach's side of the ball. What's interesting to me is the offense. This is their offensive coordinator is Zach Kitley, who, did magic at Western Kentucky with Bailey Zappi. What I like is they retain, 88% of their Ryan from last season. They had a tough situation that they actually had to start 3 quarterbacks during different parts of last season because Shuck got hurt because he's always hurt. And then Donovan Smith, I think, got hurt because he runs a lot. So their 3 quarterbacks had apexes of 71, 96, and 65. None of those are great. And this is what's interesting to me. In 2021, Bailey Zappi's apex was 135 at Western Kentucky. So I'm really curious if this is a proof of concept issue. I need to be convinced, I'll put it that way, as to whether Kitley's offense can work at the Power 5 level, number one. Number two, does this team have a quarterback that can run it? I think just those questions kind of just keep me away because, that offense was awesome at Western Kentucky, and it's going to be year 2. So I can't say this isn't going to work, but I need to be convinced. And I think if it does work, I'm interested to see, how many other teams just go this crazy on that scheme where it's just, Mike Leach, cubed basically in terms of just what they do on offense. So The total is 7 to 7.5. It seems a little high, but there's just so many unknowns that I'm just kind of passing here. I do see them as stairs down because they did have a surprisingly good season last season. What do you think, Nathan?
I don't know much about this team. I've got to be honest. I'm still learning about the Big 12. At the end of the day, I usually look at what the over-unders are as they're sort of being rated by people who have been watching them, and then generally attack it from there. Remind me who their coach's name is?
Joey McGuire. He was
Right. That's right.
from Baylor, and then he was a high school coach before that, so he's kind of a legend.
Right. I like Texas Tech. So I think they could be a monster. They're setting up to be the team. I think they want to sort of be the bosses on the playground, right?
Oh, you think so?
I do. I think their recruiting is amazing. If you guys put in some time on their recruiting, they are getting some athletes. That's all I can say. So without knowing much about their scheme or anything, I like Joey McGuire. I like the location, and I think they're a very strong team. I actually have them as a dark horse to win the whole thing.
Wow.
So if their over-under is 8, I would take the over.
Really? Okay,
Yeah.
it's 7.5. So you definitely like that. The one thing that nobody mentioned, just it's worth mentioning, their season opens at home versus Oregon, which is an awesome venue for a really cool matchup.
That's a game I got to make appointment viewing. I got to see that game. Wow. Yeah. Okay. All right.
I cannot miss that one.
Take the over in that one.
Yeah, no kidding.
I guarantee you, Texas Tech is going to be amped. Like it's like their Super Bowl. That Oregon could be in for tough sledding. That's all I'm saying.
That could be a conference game next season.
Absolutely could. Yep.
Yeah. Good point.
They could.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. I'm going to go with Oklahoma next, who went 6-7 somehow last season. Dylan Gabriel, I have him as the second best quarterback returning in the Big 12, 8th in all of FBS, behind only Jalen Daniels. The big thing for this team is have they solved their quarterback depth problem. If you saw what happened when Gabriel went down, they had this kid, Davis Bevel, who actually had a negative apex, which kind of makes my model, it makes light bend, for lack of a better term. It screws up all my metrics because it's really hard to go negative on apex. They added a top 5 quarterback recruit in Jackson Arnold, so I don't know how quickly they would use him as a backup, but considering what they got last season, he's probably going to be the backup almost from game one. They lose a lot of their receiving firepower. They lost Marvin Mims, who I had second in all of FBS, and Ryan. That's going to hurt. I think their ability to find a new playmaker could determine how good this team is going to be. They actually had a really, really good running game. Their offensive line, they don't return a whole lot, but they have a really good offensive line coach. And I think this scheme is plug and play, for lack of a better term. On defense, their defense looked horrible. It was actually a slight improvement. The problem was against the pass. The metrics are favorable. The thing is that I want to see about this, and I kind of have a really good appreciation for this being a USC guy. I think a Lincoln Riley offense covers up a lot of the problems on defense. And you look at, I'll put it in this context. You have an Ohio State that, an Ohio State level of offense, and you can have a barely okay defense and basically come within a missed field goal of being national champs. If that offense goes from Lincoln Riley or Ryan Day to just Kendall Briles or Jeff Levy level, I think that those problems on defense aren't just ratably the same amplified. I think they're exponentially exposed because the offense is just covering up so many shortcomings for the defense. And I think the build was a lot bigger than everybody expected for Venables in year one. I think that he didn't really understand that or appreciate that until basically he got on the field and said, oh my gosh, these guys don't know how to tackle, which sadly looks like kind of like the sign of a Lincoln Riley team, unfortunately. I think that considering how bad the build was, I think that there was probably a proof of concept in terms of Venables in the first year improving the defense. They were really unlucky. They had almost 2 games of bad luck last season. K Ford has them improving by 3.3. That doesn't even account for them losing Gabriel for 2 games. Um, they had a really weird end to the regular season. They lost to Baylor. They lost at West Virginia. They beat Oklahoma State, and they lost at Texas Tech. They outgained their opponents per play in all 4 games. They really should have gone like 3-1 or 4-0. They actually went 1-3 over that stretch. The non-conference is easy. Arkansas State, who's bad. SMU, I think that's easier than probably our guest last night thinks. At Tulsa, they should win. They're in rebuild. They're one of those other teams get 3 of the new Big 12 teams. 9.5 seems about right. That's their total at circa. I think they're going to. I want to say I think they'll be better than people expect. Although, I'm thinking that people have just kind of. That's supposing that people kind of threw them in the bin after a horrible season last season, especially how bad their team looked. So I'm bullish on them. I think the 9.5 is maybe a little low, but not enough for me to bet it. So what do you think about Oklahoma, Nathan?
Boy, you can't, again, this is one of those situations where the stats are going to say one thing. Look, Lincoln Riley took 90% of our starters to Oklahoma. So the team that went 6-7 in a Power 5 league was basically all backups or late transfers. So Venables is a good coach. He won at Clemson. He knows how to do defense. He's the opposite of Lincoln Riley, and I think he knows how to recruit. So they're on the way back. Is this the year? Probably not. I think next year Oklahoma could be making noise in the SEC West or East. No, it is West, isn't it? But this year in this Big 12, I have them over Texas. I think it's going to be Oklahoma and either Kansas State or Texas Tech in the championship game. And if I had to bet the number, I don't know right now, because I got Kansas State next on my review here, and I really like Kansas State. I think Kansas State was an underrated team last year, and they won the whole thing. So it's just, who do they run into? Is it the team that grew into the positions last year? Or is it a team that's like, wait a second, we're still the second stringers that got an opportunity, and now we've been elevated? Which does Venables bring out in their first game? If they come out and win 66-0 against whoever they're playing, they're for real. I don't care who their competition is. It means that he's figured out the mechanics to coach that team. They could easily win 11 or 12 games.
Arkansas State.
I was going to say that. You just predicted the score of that game. They're
going to boat race. They're going to boat race them. They are absolutely going to run them off the field to embarrass them, just to show the world last year was a fluke. If they're for real. If they're not for real, it's a 35-28 game or something.
Okay.
I kind of agree with that. I do have this as stairs up. The team is improved. Dylan Gabriel's hopefully going to be back next for the full season. This year he did lose a couple of games last year. Wide receiver though is a big question mark though. They lost Marvin Mims. He was a huge part of this team. Now can they replace him? Yeah, sure. Are they going to be able to? I don't know. Right. I think they will improve, but again, I think they're going to be that middle tier team. I think again, we're saying a big middle tier. I think that's exactly where they're going to be. They're going to fit. I think they're going to be higher end middle tier, but I think they're that middle tier. I don't at this moment. I don't really know who I think is going to be the top. They have a chance to be the top, but like right now, I'm projecting them as kind of upper middle tier. I think there's a chance they could be the top, but I think it's much more likely that they're going to lose random games to other random teams. I mean, they got Texas. They could definitely beat Texas, but they have some other games in here which I'm like a little bit more iffy on, and I think they could run into some problems. So watch out for Oklahoma. I think there's going to be a couple spots when you might be able to pick them, and then that might be a really good, might be a good value play because Oklahoma is one of these teams, kind of like Texas. We kind of talked about how Texas has the line doesn't make sense. It's been more bet to the over and stuff, so there's value on the under and stuff. Oklahoma is another one of those teams where it's such a big name that you're going to have like they're going to be doing okay, and then there's going to be a spread that's going to be out of place. They're going to be like minus 10.5 favorites against someone, and people are going to be like, yeah, whatever they'll cover that. I'm like, I don't think they should be that level favorites against someone, right? And this is the thing. Dylan Gabriel looked amazing with UCF, right? And last year he really did take a step back, even with Marvin Mims, right? So, I mean, obviously the injury played a part in that, but I'm still a little concerned about that. So this will be an improved team. I think they can go to the SEC, and I think they can do some damage in the SEC. But I don't know if this is their year in the last year of the Big 12. I think I watch out for them next year because, again, I think they could be a really good SEC team. And, again, at some point, and we mentioned this before, at some point Nick Saban will not be the head coach of Alabama anymore. Like, physically,
Right.
he will not, like, he eventually, everybody dies. Like, I mean, like, we're not saying, but, like, eventually he has to retire, right? And that's the thing. I mean, we all hope it's not going to be soon, but eventually he will retire. And at that point, you're going to have a new top coach in the SEC. Now, obviously, you're going to have Kirby Smart, but you're going to have some room for some other top head coaches there. And I think Venables could potentially, if he does well this year, I think he could potentially be up there.
Sounds like we all think they're probably still in the ramp up phase, although to what degree we don't know.
Right, what degree it is,
yeah. Okay, fair enough. Team that's kind of gone up the ramp already, Kansas State. Nathan.
Yes. So this was a fun one for me because I'm a huge fan of Chris Kleeman.
Yeah.
All right, I'll just say that up front. Both he and the coach at Kansas, I just spaced his name all of a sudden. They are fantastic coaches, both of them. And I think those two universities struck gold. And if they can hang on to him for another season, I will be shocked because I think other bigger schools are going to come calling. Kleeman, I think, is going to be the first guy somebody calls. I think he's the best coach in the conference. And Will Howard is a stud. Again, one of the best quarterbacks in the league. And, I mean, they do lose Deuce Vaughn. So what do you guys think about this? Is one of the outstanding – I had a question mark next to this. The loss of Deuce Vaughn, I think Robert probably has stats on this because I think he likes rushing things. He was a major part of their success last year. When they wanted to salt away a game, when they beat, for instance, TCU in the championship game, they handed the ball to Deuce Vaughn and just let him run. And they burned the clock, and that's how they won the game. Can they do that with anybody else? Was he just lightning in a bottle, or did you see something in the stats from the offensive line that says they're it, and this is going to be like that for a while? That's the only question I have. Defense is awesome. I don't even need to go through the stats. It's just they're a great team. I think they're in the championship game if they play out, if they don't have major injuries. But this one outstanding thing about the rushing deal, I don't know if that could be a sort of an Achilles heel. Robert's checking his stats in his book. I see that.
I'm checking my stats quickly on one other thing.
Was that a comic book price book you're looking at right there?
No, it's Phil Steele.
X-Men 182, first appearance of Wolverine.
No,
all right. Okay.
So I'm just trying to figure out what the impact of Adrian Martinez was. So, because I'm trying to get the exact number here. So Adrian Martinez started about half-ish of the season, give or take, I think.
Right.
I'm just looking at these stats.
Howard had 5 starts.
Howard had 5 starts. Yeah, he started the end of the season, the end of this year. So the biggest thing I think, obviously, when you look at a team year over year, obviously, especially in college, you're like, okay, quarterback, offensive, and then on the defensive side. So obviously they lose Martinez, but they do have to replace Will Howard. They do have Will Howard now to replace Martinez. He was not bad in the last couple of starts. I think he was undefeated actually, except for the bowl game. So that's a positive. But at the same time, now there's more tape on this guy. He only had 5 starts before. He was kind of a bit of an unknown. Now there's more tape on the guy, and Alabama was able to disassemble them pretty easily there in whatever bowl game that was that they played. They also lose Deuce Vaughn, which is, again, a huge thing. I think sometimes in college especially, the running back is such an important position because defenses are a lot worse, and if you have a power running back that can just shut down games, you can do that. I also have another kind of additional theory about kind of between going from the NFL to the from going to college to the NFL, is that basically if a player is good in the NFL and basically their team, like basically if a team is bad after a player leaves, and then that player will be good in the NFL. But if the player is good in the NFL, then that means that the team they're leaving is going to take a huge downgrade. And the way we saw from that was like Trevor Lawrence going to Clemson. We go from Clemson. Clemson took a huge step down when he left. And and obviously with Florida, the second they lost Kyle Trask and Kadarius Toney and Kyle Pitts, they took a huge step down as well. Now, a couple of exceptions. Obviously, Ohio State apparently has an endless range of 5-star wide receivers that they can just run out every year. But
Right.
but a lot of these schools that are not Ohio State, there is limitations to this, and I think that they've lost some of those pieces. They've lost a lot of pieces on receiver. I think this offense is going to be in a lot worse shape than it was last year, and I am concerned about that. I think I do like this Kansas State team. Again, I think a lot of people didn't like them last year. I actually did kind of like them to some extent, but I think they are a regression candidate at least for this year. They might need at least kind of a bit of a retooling year. I think they're up there, but again, they did have a lot of close games last year, and I think that is a little concerning if you're looking at a team to go to the conference championship game. I don't know. You can still like Kansas State, and a lot of people still do like Kansas State this year. I definitely like them more than a couple teams here, but again, I kind of have them in that mushy middle there.
Interesting. Okay.
Wow. I have them, even though they're the reigning Big 12 champs, I have them as going up the stairs.
Wow.
I'm a huge fan of Kleeman as well. When I hesitated about calling Leipold the best head coach, it was basically Kleeman or Leipold. Here's what's interesting. So their GGAB, again, like the ground game against above Boston College, they were 16th in all of FBS. And what is really impressive about that is I have some experience and improvement metrics that I do for offensive line and for defense. They actually should have considered last year a rebuilding year because they were very inexperienced and they were projecting no improvement. And their ground game was awesome. A lot of that was Deuce Vaughn. But still, you're not going to have a running game without an offensive line. And I think that goes to Kleeman. And basically, you're successful at North Dakota State. You know how to develop talent, and you can really rebuild in what should be, or reload rather, in what should be a rebuilding season. It's scary how experienced and how much improved this offensive line should be. They're like one of only two teams that project favorably in the very top in all four of my metrics on the offensive line. I don't think either of you mentioned they brought in Treshaun Ward from Florida State. Now, who knows if new system and all that, but that actually was something that Florida State fans were kind of a little hurt about. He ran for 6.6 yards per carry last season.
He went from Florida State to Kansas State.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy, guys, that we could say that? NIL has changed the world of college football. That's all there's to it.
NIL, yeah. Well, I think that having Chris Kleeman helps too. I think if you still have Ron
it's
Prince
Kansas.
there.
It's still Kansas.
True, very true.
Right.
I'm very bullish on Will Howard. Last season, Adrian Martinez's apex was only 96. Howard's was 120, and that was in his second year as a quarterback. He was really poor in 21. He was actually good according to my metrics last season. I think with a full season of him, overall, there's going to be an improvement in quarterback play. And I liked Martinez. It just didn't kind of work out. So I think they're going to be better. As I had them ninth best in my total power rating. So there was no luck. Basically they were a legitimate top 10 team. The post-game win expectancy showed no luck. They actually have a really good schedule. I don't think that they'll be a dog until they play Texas on November 4th. They should be favored in every game in September and October. Somehow I can see that maybe there's a little bit of disbelief. Maybe people are thinking just the train ends at some time here. The total is 8, and actually the over is even money. You're not even laying money. So I'm pretty sure I like the over in that basically there's a chance that they could at least hit that 8 before we get to November. So I'm pretty bullish on this team. All right. Next, Iowa State. This is a pretty easy team. I have them as stairs up just because their quarterback play was so bad last season. Deckers, Deckers was a
nowhere
disaster.
to go but up.
Exactly. And literally they have a backup who was a top 10 quarterback recruit. So I think that at some point, pretty quickly, Campbell's going to look and just say, all right, it's not working out with Deckers. We've got a highly recruited kid who actually, got a year in the system last season. I think that basically, just pretty quickly, quarterback is going to be better one way or another. Their defense I actually had as the best in the Big 12, which is nuts considering that
wow.
they actually projected to regress. They had a really low improvement metric from 21 to 22. They had absolutely no help from the offense at all. If the quarterback play just is just okay, that'll be such a huge help to the defense. I kind of pause here because they had 2.7 games of bad luck last season, and K Ford shows them improving by 1.8 games. The problem is Matt Campbell has made my bad luck's kind of a habit with you list. So I'm hoping that they recoup some of that. I think they'll be improved. That's why I see them as going up the stairs this season. We'll see about the quarterback position. What about you, Robert?
Yeah, I do have Iowa State as stairs up. They improved by last year by getting more experienced, but they are, right? Like, they're a bit more experienced. Again, a lot of improvement from last year. They can probably get to a bowl, but again, they're not the top team in the Big 12. I don't think anybody particularly is saying they are. But again, they'll be improved. And the thing is, again, Iowa State is this sneaky team every year in the Big 12. When like you get to a point, you're like, man, Iowa State just randomly sneaks up on someone and just beats them in like a really hard fought game. It's usually Oklahoma, to be fair, but sometimes it's other teams too. And they're a team that no one particularly wants to play kind of late in, because again, they're the weird kind of odd man out. They're the most north team in the league, and if you get deep into winter, you get later into October, November, it gets really cold up there. No one wants to go up to Iowa State there in November. So
Right.
I think they probably get to a bowl, but I mean they have Texas up there actually second last week of the season, so that's an interesting little game there. Texas has to travel up to Iowa State. So, but no, this is the thing. They're gonna rebuild this year. Again, Matt Campbell was a pretty good head coach. Was considered for a bigger job before, didn't get it, and then last year after their 4-8, just everybody completely ignored him again, which is not fair. He probably should still be in line for some of these jobs. But again, let's see what kind of upsets he can pull off. Again, he's at Iowa State. This isn't Florida or something. This is like a not particularly big school, and he's able to do a really good job there. So I'm excited to see what this guy could do this year, and we'll go from there.
Iowa State, Matt Campbell. I don't know. He has had some amazing teams that can't get over the hump. I had them on the over. What's his over under 5.5?
I'll check that.
Yeah, I didn't even make a note of that.
I'm trying to remember my stats from the last one I did.
5.5.
Yeah, geez, look at that. I'm not so stupid. I would take the under. The
Really?
Big 12 is absolutely. The Big 12 is going to be Robert keeps saying it. It's a gauntlet. In the mushy middle, as you talk about it. And I think Cincinnati has them on their schedule. And I think that was a sneaky game. I think they play UCF. But I can't remember. I don't have the schedule in front of me. But they have some games that I just don't. I don't want to sound like I don't respect him. I do. Matt Campbell is this sort of schizophrenic coach. When he's not supposed to win, he wins 12 games or whatever, and then when he's supposed to, and he has loaded talent and everything else, he wins 5. So I don't know what to make of them. They're like, I don't know.
You've done another. Oh, go ahead, Robert.
One thing I will kind of say about that kind of mushy middle thing is that I do. Obviously football, and I also do a lot of esports content as well, esports betting content as well.
Oh, okay.
And esports is also interesting because unlike football, you can play multiple times a week, sometimes multiple times a day, right? So
Right.
In certain esports leagues, when you have every team playing a ton of people, and we've in a couple of times we've had that kind of mushy middle where there's like 6 to 8 teams that are like all roughly comparable. There's like a top edge to it and a lower edge to it. But basically what the betting strategy is basically like if you see 2 teams are kind of in that mushy middle and one is massive favorites against the other one, just bet the dog. And you just keep winning money because it's like these teams are roughly comparable, but the betting's saying for whatever reason. Sometimes because some teams are a bigger name than other teams, or because the team lost the game before. Some of those betting lines move out of shape, and you just bet on these teams are basically the same, and you get value on that. And I think that's what we're going to see that again this year. There's going to be like some ridiculously outplaced Iowa State line. They do play Oklahoma. That'll be late September, but like there'll be some random game where they're going to be like 14.5-point dogs to someone, and it's going to be like they should not be that big of a dog, and then you're going to play them, and then they're going to win that game, right?
Right.
And that's kind of the mushy middle, and that's how you play that.
I think you just described that Texas game is such a classic.
That's a trap game, yeah.
That might be the Sark gets fired game. I don't know.
Maybe.
That's so.
Have to see.
One other thing before we move on. Nathan, the guest, kind of did the guest thing. We have to make almost like make it a bingo game here.
What?
He said about Matt Campbell. His team just couldn't get over the hump, which every guest now has kind of made like the epitaph to some coach at some point during the podcast about, this is going on his gravestone.
Great.
Great. He just captured it perfectly as relates to him. So,
I respect him. I think he's a good coach, but there's a reason he didn't get hired at Wisconsin. There's a reason he didn't get hired when some of these other big schools openings came, and I think people are concerned that he can't win those big games. Unless it's Iowa. He can beat Iowa, but whatever.
One last thing on that. What's interesting too is, Jason Candle coached under him at Toledo, and he's at Toledo now. And Candle is also one of my bad luck coaches, which is just really, really interesting. Yeah. That's one of those things I kind of am scared to look into. All right. So anyways, Cincinnati, Robert, your team.
Yes. Well, not my team. A team that I picked for my thing. No, I mean, the thing is, this team is actually pretty interesting this year. I've got them at the lobby. So they were 9-4 last year. I got kind of lobby maybe stares down. So basically they lose Luke Fickell to Wisconsin team I'm pretty high on this year. But they do replace him with Scott Satterfield. They have Emory Jones to replace the loss of Ben Bryant, who randomly is at Northwestern somehow. That's good luck to him.
He's got to like that.
Yeah, but Emory Jones is like roughly the same as Ben Bryant. I actually kind of like Ben Bryant. I think Emory Jones is actually a pretty good quarterback. That could be pretty good. But again, this is a team that's going to basically be like, this is like the definition of that mushy middle. And there's going to be times when it's going to be they're a massive dog to someone, and you can and you can be able to get a really good value on them. I think they're not the top of the conference. It's going to take a bit for them to adjust. This is again obviously not the team that went to the college football playoff. They don't have Desmond Ridder. I think they lost a wide receiver. They lost Alex Pierce. Alex Pierce is at Indiana, or is with the Colts now, and then they also lost the cornerback. Is it? Yeah, CJ. I can't remember guard. Yeah, like the one cornerback is with the Jets, I believe.
The Gardner was 2 years ago, I think, right?
What's that? I thought it was last year. He was in the running for Rookie of the Year. I can't remember, but
yeah, you're right. Sorry. Yep.
Was it?
Yep.
Was that only a year? Yeah, you're right. That was only a year ago.
Sauce Gardner.
Yeah,
he was a rookie last year.
So no, they've lost a lot of pieces since then. I was kind of surprised they actually did only regress down to 9-4. Some of that could have been Luke Finkel. It's his system. It's his people in place. I think this team is going to regress a bit, but maybe not that much. Again, Satterfield was pretty good at Louisville, but it's going to take a while for him to get his pieces in place and the people that he wants there. So down, but maybe they can get to a bowl.
I have him going down the stairs too. I've made it no secret I'm a big fan of Satterfield, and with all the whatevers on offense, don't forget that he immediately made the offensive better at Louisville, like from game one. Literally, his first game was like, oh my gosh, look at this. What is this? This is awesome. The defense was a long build at Louisville, and I think they keep a decent amount of experience from a pretty good defense last year. I had him as a +7.5, which is actually, in that range where I'm happy to take them as a team in an under bet for a game, rather. They have enough talent returning from that. I think that this will be a quicker fix on defense, much quicker fix than at Louisville. That Louisville team that he took over, let's not forget, he took over for that awesome last gasp of Bobby Petrino, and I believe Brian Van Gorder was his defensive coordinator, so it was just a horrible scene. That was going to be a slow build. I think this will be a quicker turnaround on defense. What I really like about this is I think that probably everybody is just overlooking every positive aspect of the coaching staff because it went so poorly at Louisville. I think Satterfield's going to do everything he can and push every lever to just win from right out of the gate. Not that all coaches don't do that, but anything that he can do, he's going to try just to prove that Louisville basically poisoned the well for him. He actually took App State from FCS to the Sun Belt, and he won 3 Sun Belt titles in 5 seasons. So he knows how to kind of navigate the whole move up against tougher competition. They're not going to win the conference, but I think there's a case to be made for going over the 5.5, which is the season total. I think that this team is really easy to see getting overlooked. I like them. I haven't run the metrics on that one yet, but I'm going to look on maybe taking the over on them. Nathan?
Cincinnati. It's too bad that they couldn't keep their coach. I think these guys win maybe 4 games.
Really?
That's all I got to say about it. Yeah, no, I heard everything you said about Satterfield. I don't know anything about him. I know he came from a school that I don't think I'd heard of until somebody told me about it. And you talk about it's gonna be trouble for UCF or even West Virginia. These guys are gonna be in a buzzsaw. They'll win their 2 out of conference games, and they might win 2 more games.
Wow.
So, but I don't know anything, so don't listen to me.
That's why you're here.
That's
okay.
They've got Eastern
I hope
Kentucky.
all your bettors are taking my advice and making money. That's all I'm saying.
They've got Eastern Kentucky, and the Miami, Ohio. So those are the 2 non-conference games, and then it doesn't look particularly good after that. So, but yeah, it's going to be tough. I think they can probably sneak a win somewhere. Like if there's a team that has a bad rushing defense, Emory Jones is a bit of a rushing quarterback, so they could probably scoop that up. They do get Houston, so that could be a potential win.
That's a win. Yeah.
They have a couple. There's a win. There you go. There's a couple. They got West Virginia as well. They actually to travel to West Virginia, which is actually almost a home game. Almost a home game. And then they got Pitt, so that's not bad. They can win a couple of those games. But yeah, the Big 12 games are going to be a bit rough.
I don't think they're going to beat Pitt or West Virginia.
You can always beat Pitt.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But
Narduzzi will always do you a favor.
If they're in Morgantown, they are not beating West Virginia.
Interesting.
They're very
I don't
close.
care.
They're very close.
Neil Brown could be the worst coach in the history of coaches, and Cincinnati's going to come in there and they are going to get thrashed by 30 points.
Oh my gosh!
Wow.
Okay? Wow, I should have had you do the West Virginia preview then.
Well, I'm not saying West Virginia is going to win the league. I'm just saying I think Cincinnati is going to have a hard time. That's more the measurement.
All right. So 4 more here. We'll do these kind of quickly. Baylor went 6-7 last season. I think that they made the wrong decision at quarterback before last season. That bit him in the butt. The offensive line is a rebuild. I'm sure the defense will improve. They were disappointing last season, but Aranda knows what he's doing. I don't really see them improving much overall, though. I think that quarterback situation needs to play itself out. Robert?
Yeah, I do have them as stairs up a little bit. Last year was a bit rebuilding. They do keep the quarterback and most of the offensive pieces, but again, at some point, they're going to have the team that they want. And I think, again, like, this is what I say, mushy middle, like, definition of it's going to be a team right in the middle. Right. It's hard, like, it's really hard to differentiate between a lot of these teams, I feel like. So Baylor is up there, and they're right smack dab in the middle of that.
I like Baylor. So I'm sort of tilted. What's their over-under?
I will get that number. 1 sec. 7.5 plus 135. So
wow.
7.
Oh yeah, I think. Well, wait a second. No, 7. I think it's actually 7. So I don't know how you bet that, but
well, you don't have to. Nobody's making you. That's the beauty.
I'm
of it.
not going to. I already told you. I don't bet
7.
sports.
You get the push there.
Yeah.
All right, Oklahoma State. What's interesting is 2 things. On offense, finally, Spencer Sanders is gone. The offense have really stunk since Casey Dunn was promoted to offensive coordinator. We get to see, has the problem been Spencer Sanders or Casey Dunn? I think it's Casey Dunn. Alan Bowman, who once was at Texas Tech, then went to Michigan to play backup, is the quarterback here. So we'll see about that. Derek Mason is no longer the defensive coordinator there. He lasted all of one season. I'm guessing he probably left on his own volition since he's not cheap. The new DC is from Division II, so I don't know what to expect here. There's just a lot of question marks. The only other thing is Mike Gundy has had his teams overachieve by a luck metric each of the 3 seasons that I've tracked it. So there's something here, especially, which is weird because his quarterback play is kind of stunk, and there's usually a correlation there. So I'm not going to pour dirt on Gundy. I'm just kind of wait and see on this team. Nathan? Oh, sorry.
I like Mike Gundy. No, that's fine. Robert, you can go. Go ahead.
No, I thought they would have gotten rid of the offensive coordinator after having Central Michigan put up 44 points against them. But.
Maybe.
Very fair.
So is that it? That's all you want to say?
I just want to jump in there.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mike Gundy.
Oh, that's all right. I like Mike Gundy. I like Oklahoma State. I'd love them to get a rivalry with BYU. I think it'd be a fun place to go, and I really respect the organization that they've built there. Last year was a shocker. 2 years ago, they were 1 game away from the playoff.
Yeah.
So I don't know what you're going to get this year. I know BYU picked up one of their starting linemen, Caleb Etienne, who's like 360 and is a man. He's going to be plowing the road here in Provo. So I don't know what's going on there. I can't figure him out. I don't know if Gundy's lost his team and they're transferring out, or they just maybe Etienne just wasn't as good as the guy behind him. I don't know what it is, but I don't know how to pick him. Honestly, I'm stumped. I don't even really have an opinion. I don't know what to say about him.
I'll kind of jump in there. I actually do have I do have this team of stairs down, actually. They lose a lot of pieces on offense, and the defense was bad last season. Again, they do have a new defensive coordinator, okay, but he was from D2, not the most encouraging sign. And again, same offensive coordinator, okay, they got rid of Spencer Sanders, okay, and that point, then now their new quarterback is Alan Bowman. So, okay, yeah, get rid of Spencer Sanders, but there's like at least I can think of at least 5 quarterbacks that are on different teams that I would have rather had than that guy. And this is the thing, right? So now you're going to be starting functionally. I believe he is. I think he's like a starter. Yeah, like 11 passes attempts. So like he's basically a rookie. He's probably like a second year or so. But this is the thing. I think it's a bit concerning for this team. I think there's some potential negative sides for this team this year.
Very fair. Can't argue. Houston, I didn't know they went 8-5 last season. They didn't seem that good. They had a good quarterback, Clayton Tune. They lose him. Downgrade to, I think it's downgrade to Donovan Smith from Texas Tech. They lose a good amount of their Ryan from last season. Their defense actually was surprisingly bad. They had a good defense with Doug Belk, and that just kind of fell apart. I think that you know, kind of like Nathan said about Cincinnati, I think just the move up in class just kind of hurts these guys, especially granted their quarterback has played at this level. The other side of that argument is that he stunk at Texas Tech. So maybe he just wasn't a fit for that unique offense. But, if I'm moving up, I would rather have kind of almost any other quarterback than this guy to lead the way. Their total's 4.5. And the over's getting play for some reason. Maybe they have an Eastern Conference. I didn't make a note of that here, but I don't see them really being much of a factor or even really scaring anybody this year. What about you, Nathan?
Houston and Cincinnati are going to struggle this first year. Just all there is to it. If they win 5 games, it's a good season, pat their head, and go to the next. I wouldn't even worry about it. I wouldn't look at it as a negative. The difference between Cincinnati and Houston is Cincinnati was there 2 years ago, and now they lost their coach and their team. A lot of that's graduated and is gone. So Houston is all over the place. The conference they've been playing in, they haven't won it. They haven't been dominating other deals. So I think 5 games would actually be a success for them. Cincinnati 5 games and they're going to be disappointed.
Fair. Robert?
Yeah, I've got Houston. Yeah, stairs down. Losing Clayton Tune, that really hurts. And that is a big problem for them. He was actually one of the better Power 5 quarterbacks last year in all of FBS. He is now... who drafted him? I can't remember who drafted him, but he is in the NFL now. Was it... No, Cleveland got Dorian Thompson-Robinson. He's at some team. I can't. I'm forgetful letting me think which team it was, but I was like, it was a good fit, and like he may actually see the field at some point. But no, like that is a big loss for this team, and I don't see like that. He was basically the reason they went 8-5 last year was basically because of him. I mean, there was the game against Memphis; they should have lost that game. He threw for like 1 billion yards to get the back end of that game. I think you could basically credit him with almost every single for all the close wins was basically just Clayton Tune pure grit there. I think that's going to be a huge loss for this team. And now you're doing a step up in conference. Now you're just step up in competition everywhere. Like you don't get to play like East Carolina anymore. Now you're playing Oklahoma, and that's a problem.
Yeah, is that different? I don't know. Is it? All right, last team for good reason. West Virginia 5-7. Both the offensive coordinator and quarterback leave town after one season there. Wide receiving core was decimated. They are like in the very bottom in terms of how much Ryan they returned from last year's team. Defense is horrible versus the pass. Maybe they improve on defense. People are surprised that Neil Brown is actually still the coach there. I think the new athletic director is probably a little reticent to fire somebody so soon. I guess I have them going down the stairwell. Although I don't think they're as good as their 5-7 record last season. They're pretty bad. So I don't really see anything turning around. Maybe the thought is, hey, if it's not working out, just do like USC a couple of years ago, get rid of the coach early, and so you can get a good head start on the coaching search for the next guy. What do you think, Robert?
Yeah, I stares down. I don't completely understand why they got rid of JT Daniels for a worse quarterback. He was like kind of okay. Like, was this West Virginia team good? No. But were they okay? Yes. Like, I don't and if you're JT Daniels, I don't understand why you would leave West Virginia to go to play for Rice. Like, why? There's so many questions about what happened there. I have no idea why that even happened. But no, like it's a tougher schedule this year than last year. They have just looking over here, they got Oklahoma. They're gonna have they have Penn State right off the bat, Texas Tech, Pittsburgh, TCU, UCF, BYU, Oklahoma, Cincy, Baylor. Like there's going to be teams that are just better than them, and I think it's going to be very, very rough. Like there's a couple teams on here that they can maybe beat, but I think like you can't really say that they're better than any of these teams that they're playing, especially not with JT. Like with JT Daniels, I'd be like, okay, maybe they could break 500 here, but like no, they're worse than Texas Tech, they're worse than TCU, they're worse than Oklahoma, probably worse than Cincy. Like they're just worse than a lot of these teams, and I think that's a big problem for them this year.
It's weird to start over at quarterback when your job's on the line. So Nathan, you guarantee to win for the Mountaineers over Cincinnati. You see them going at least 1-11.
I do, yeah. Hey, BYU has traveled to Morgantown too, and I think they could beat BYU just the same way. That's what his problem is he can win these games that are sort of outliers, but then you get Baylor coming to town, or they have to travel to Texas Tech, and they just get annihilated, right? We know they can win there. They've had some amazing teams and amazing coaches that Neil Brown, they should have fired him last year. I'm not ever calling for people's jobs, but I'm stating obvious things. And when you keep a guy around that's gone back-to-back not good years, in modern day football, you can't do that. You cannot do that because you lose recruiting. You lose your recruiting battles to Pitt, and it doesn't work. So I have them also. I think is it 4.5, or did it change?
Let me check. They are W, so it's very far down the list. 4.5 minus 150, so maybe like a 5.
Yeah, if they beat BYU, it's 5. If they lose to BYU, it's 4. How about that?
Fair.
I like.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I like your mentality there. I call it, and please take no offense, I call it like the idiot's guide to game theory. Like, okay,
sure.
If my team is going there, how concerned am I? It's like, okay, well, you still have to respect that stadium and that venue. You just have to hope like you catch them at the right time. It's like right before they fire Neil Brown instead of like right after when everybody like comes out like the Berlin Wall has fallen or something.
BYU ran into that at Missouri a few years ago. BYU was they were favored by like 2 touchdowns the week before. Missouri fired their coach because there was an uprising by the players. They basically said they wouldn't play for him anymore. They fired him. BYU comes in and they're supposed to walk all over him. Missouri beat him by like 3 touchdowns. So I want to play him before Neil Brown gets fired. I don't want to be the guy that has to come in after because they get fired up for those games.
Yeah, because you've got you generally at that point have some sort of assistant or coordinator who was beloved generally by the players because they're just like, sure, why not make this person the head coach? They're happy that they got rid of a coach who was potentially in some cases abusive, maybe just mean to people. So you're like, hey, he's gone now. Everything is good. We got this guy we really, really like. Maybe they have pizza or something before the game. I don't know, but everybody's just pretty happy. They go for ice cream after. But no, it's just things change when they fire the head coach. Didn't Nebraska? Oh no, Nebraska had they eventually won a game. That wasn't the next game after they fired Scott Frost because they fired Scott Frost and they got annihilated by Oklahoma. Objectively, just annihilated. But then the next
that was a different mentality though. We were looking at different situations. It's YOLO though, right? You only live once, and these guys they will sell out for these assistant coaches that are beloved. That's exactly right, Robert. There's always a team that has a coach that everybody loves, everybody gets along with. He comes in and he's like a white knight, and these teams will run through walls for him. The week before, they couldn't even get out and put their uniforms on. The next week, they're Superman. It's incredible how that works.
And the other factor there is they have no tape on that new guy, right? They're like, what's he gonna do? We have literally no idea.
Reason.
We have no idea what this guy's going to do. So
that's it. Yeah.
You really deep cut, and this is totally obscure. Any of you guys remember Jack Pardee?
I do.
Yeah. Do you remember when he was fired by the Oilers? And
I do.
He was a total run and shoot guy, and Jeff Fisher they brought in, and the first game he did 70% runs, and talk about no film on the guy. When you said that, that's what I thought.
The way Jeff Fisher was, it was all trick plays. It was trick plays, fake run backs. I mean, he did fake punts. Absolutely. Pardee was like this old, Southwest Conference. I'm going to come in and dominate the NFL, and nothing.
That didn't quite work out. Yeah.
No, Fisher comes in. Who is this lunatic over here with his headphones? I mean, what's he even doing there? You don't know what he's going to do. Fake punts. It just, I remember that.
Yeah. Okay. Good stuff. So 4 final questions. The first one, I don't know if I'm surprising you guys with this one. What % chance do you give the Big 12 for getting a playoff bid this year?
Go ahead, Robert.
That's a good question. We're still in. It's hard because we're still in 4. It's got to be maybe Oklahoma if they had if they went but if they go 10-2, they're not going to be able to do it. It's going to have to be Oklahoma or Kansas is going to have a really, really good year. Or maybe Kansas State potentially too, but it's got to be a relatively known, maybe 20-30%. The book's going to have it higher because they're going to say Texas is going to go undefeated. I'm like, that's not happening. We know that's not happening.
Right.
So it's going to be higher than it is, but I'd undercut the book there. But I think if there is someone who could do it, it could be Kansas. If their defense just gets better, then this is just it's done. Right? Kansas is the best team in the conference. Oklahoma could make it that step up as well. So. But the thing is that again, we talk about that mushy middle. It's so mushy, and the whole point is just you could be better than a team, but anybody could beat anybody, right? And I think that's what's going to happen. It's going to be like the Pac-12 disease. So
it is very likely. Yeah, USC. This if Lincoln Riley's going to win a championship, it's with this team. Let's just say that.
Very fair.
And USC was TCU's spot last year should have been USC's, and then they went out and got annihilated by Utah. And so this year I predict the reverse happens. I think there's a 10-2, maybe even 11-1 team that's in the Big 12 that doesn't get in because a brand gets in. And we're in the age of brands and rivalries, guys. Book it. Bet. Brands and rivalries. Bob Thompson said it. It's facts. So it's going to be USC. It's going to be not Michigan because they got 4 games kicked to the road. So it's not going to be Michigan. Ohio State. Georgia, Alabama, maybe LSU. This is the year I think they don't get one in.
So are you saying 0%?
Texas, they could win the whole thing, right? If Texas or Oklahoma get to 10-2 or 11-1, they'll be in the playoff.
See, that's right. See, the thing is, it is correct that if Texas is 11-1, they're in the playoff. But I just don't think that's happening, though, right? That's the thing. Like, he's right that there's that probability of it happening, but I just think there's no way that's happening. So
right, I'm saying that's probably right. I think I'm agreeing with you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, please.
No, the thing is, it's interesting because, again, we're still one more year left of this 4-team. When you're a 12-team, this matters a lot less. Like, there's going to be basically a guaranteed spot for the Big 12. It doesn't matter what the... Because, we may not even have Power 5. There may not even be 5 power conferences by 2024, right?
4.
Yeah.
There could be 4. So... Yeah. Like, this is the thing, so you're going to have basically the champion from the top 4 power conferences and then, like, 2 Power 5 ones.
2 G5. Yeah.
2 G5, right. Yeah, 2 G5 ones. So, like, this is the thing. So there's going to be... there will be a path for the... Once it's at 12, I think it's going to be a lot better. And there's a lot of arguments. Like, USC should have made the playoff last year. And the thing is, the arguments were so dumb. They were like, well, TCU lost in the conference championship game, but they didn't have to play the conference championship game, so we're going to put them in the playoff. But also USC made the conference championship game, but then for some reason they had to play the conference championship game because they lost earlier to Utah, and then lost to Utah again, so therefore they can't go to the playoff. But even though Utah beat them twice, these arguments don't make, like, logically, none of this stuff makes any sense at all. It's laughable, the logic that we apply to this. But yet somehow just decides.
In that case, though, you're talking about the Pac-12, though. They screwed the whole thing up. Washington and Oregon could have been in the championship game. I mean, you could have made an argument that USC and Oregon could have been in it, or Washington. I mean, the Pac-12 has been a dumpster fire, and they did this to themselves. They haven't had a team in since 2016. This is their last shot, because I guarantee you next year we're having this conversation. We are not talking about the Pac-12 as a power conference. I just book it.
I agree.
Well,
book it right now.
If this does dissolve, I think you're just going to see some sort of merger between the Mountain West and the Pac-12. It's going to be whatever's left from both.
Yeah.
And it's going to be an AAC and a Mountain West that basically they could go together and create some sort of a super conference, and they would be the viable 4th conference, or 5th at that point, because the ACC at that point wouldn't have blown up. But my contention is, from the information I have, there is genuine smoke that the ACC is in trouble. And there's guys there that want something different. And so who knows where we are next year. This next 12 months is going to be amazing, guys. Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, you guys have talked me. I had 30% as my answer here, but you've talked me down more to, like, I think your 20% is probably closer. The mushy middle does them in. All right. 3 Heisman bets from this conference. Nathan.
Oh, geez. Jalen Daniels. I would put number 1. Boy, I'm trying to remember the other quarterbacks. Hang on a second. Well, you caught me flat-footed there. I apologize.
That's my job.
Let's see. Will Howard. I like Will Howard. I already said that. I couldn't remember his name. And a third. I'll say yours. What the hell?
Okay. Robert?
Yeah. Stole Jalen Daniels from me, or Jaden Daniels. I like that one. I think I'd go Dylan Gabriel, Jaden Daniels, and give me Chandler Morris in case this wasn't a mystical magical season. It's a possibility. It's a possibility. I don't know what that is. He's probably like 100 to 1 or something. Again, I wouldn't. I'd only play Jaden Daniels and maybe Dylan Gabriel, but, like, there's a third one. Just throw it out there. So
right.
I'd throw just in case it wasn't a mystical magical season.
Nathan stole my Will Howard at 100 to 1. And then also Dylan Gabriel at 35. Quinn Ewers is only 12, which is a pretty lousy bet, but almost kind of like that's Sark insurance, I guess. Like, maybe I'd almost I'd put it this way. That's a better bet than Texas to win the Big 10 or Big 12 rather.
Sure.
Way better bet. So, but we're not in the business of making the least bad bets. All right. Well, we try not to be. Give me one upset from this conference. It can be a team out of conference or within conference. Just one upset.
Actually, one more thing I'll point out for you.
Oh, yeah.
Before we leave the Heisman bets, you pointed out that Ewers is 12-1. Bet365, he is 12-1. Archie Manning is 40-1.
There
Yeah,
we
I
go.
know. That's what I'm saying.
So like
yeah.
this is the thing. So first
Yeah.
of all, the Heisman lines don't even believe other Heisman lines. They're like, you're a
Exactly.
fraud. Like this doesn't make that makes no sense at all. So
Yeah.
Yes, that is a fact. And that is why Texas is schizophrenic, and anybody who's betting Texas anything is insane. They need to go to a Bellevue hospital for a year or something. If you bet anything Texas this year, you are literally a lunatic. Just book yourself into the closest hospital, turn your keys over to your family, and just take a rest, man. It's okay. Just relax.
who does Quinn Ewers play for next year then?
Probably, I don't
The
know,
Jaguars?
Tennessee Titans.
Tennessee Titans, interesting.
I don't know. I just threw out a name.
Yeah.
Let's give me somebody in the NFL.
You think it's NFL? I think it could be another transfer. I think it could be like Florida or something like that.
You're
He's
hoping
gonna
now.
isn't he? He's a redshirt sophomore though, isn't he?
Yeah, no, he's eligible.
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe a
So next
third
year,
year,
yeah, he's NFL. He's not gonna. He's got Manning behind him. He knows this is his one shot. This is it.
No, unless
He
you
either
transfer that.
Does
But
this
yeah.
now? Yeah, but guys like that don't like to transfer.
Robert's
they do,
telling
but-
you, yeah.
Unless
Robert's
it's
a
not
big
a good-
Florida guy. He's hoping. He's throwing up a
Oh,
path
okay.
here.
I see what you're saying. All right.
Well, the thing is, unless it's not a good year, right? Like if we're projecting, we can't like. I don't think two things can be true, right? We're saying we don't think Texas is going to have that good of a year, but also we think he's good. He's going to have a good enough year to go to the NFL. That's a bit questionable, right?
Oh.
So-
But that shows you how pathetic the quarterbacks are in the NFL, though. Has nothing.
Yeah.
There's better quarterbacks in college than there is in the NFL.
Mhm.
I mean, it's the NFL is starved of quarterbacks right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Upsets.
All right, I'll give you it, and you might as well just take your mortgage for this month.
Yes.
Put it down. I don't know the odds. I don't know anything. BYU will beat Oklahoma in November. Book it right now.
Wow. I like it.
I'm calling my
Um,
shot.
You go, Robert, because you kind of. I might. Your pick might influence mine here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh, so that BYU Oklahoma, that's late November. Yeah, again, that's mushy middle, full effect there. Kansas over Texas. That's done. That
Okay.
one. It's
But is
at
that
Tex-
an underdog, really?
It will be. Here's the thing.
Right now it
1,000%
is.
will be an underdog. How many
Yeah, I
weeks
don't
is
know.
it in that? It is an underdog. Where is it?
It can't be much, though.
Week 5-ish, give or take. Yeah,
Right.
week 5. It will be. There will be underdogs. They will be an underdog. I don't think Kansas is going to be favored. It's probably going to be between 7 to 14 points.
Really?
Oh yeah.
7 to 14.
Because
Wow,
the thing is,
okay.
people even last season people didn't believe in Kansas. I mean, how many times did we get like Kansas plus 14.5 and then they won the game by 14? Like, because I remember the game they played against Houston and they won that game by 14 and they were 14-point underdogs. Like, there's a lot of times when you got Kansas. Now, maybe the lines are going to adjust for that this year. I don't know, but I
Right.
think there's no way Kansas is going into Texas as a favorite. Now, it's not going to be the same because I think it was like 28-point underdogs when Kansas played Texas the last time, when they played
Right.
Texas the last time.
Yeah.
And I think this year it was, like 8. I think it was sub 10 this year when they played them, and then they just got crushed. But I think they're still going to be dogs because they were at Kansas though. But yeah, this will be that's going to be an interesting game. I think maybe another upset. I think does Oklahoma. Let me see 1 second. Does Oklahoma play? When does Oklahoma play Texas? Let's see.
Yeah, that's the Red River. That's always like
Red
in middle
River.
October.
Oklahoma. So they play actually after Kansas. Interesting.
That's
They
a trap game, then. That's a trap game. Kansas is a trap game if Oklahoma comes after.
Ah, yeah, it is. That's true. That is a trap game. Okay,
So
let's see.
you're basically scheming for Oklahoma using Kansas as the bit players in your
Yeah.
little play.
Actually, yeah. Let me do that then. So I'll do Iowa State, Texas at Iowa State. Iowa State wins. There you go. Second last game of the season.
There you go. That's a good one.
There,
I think
that's
that's a
good.
good one. Yeah.
That's what I was going to go with, and I was going to audible to that. What I actually had written down is similar, but not nearly as fun. I think TCU loses at Iowa State. TCU should probably be like one of those dreaded short road favorites. And I love the Iowa State
okay.
defense. And I think that'd be the classic, like, up and down, how'd you lose this game situation. So, All right, last question. I think that two of us agree on this. Who plays for the conference title? I'll go first. I have Kansas State and Oklahoma. Robert?
Maybe we'll make it. It's between Kansas and then between Kansas State and Oklahoma for me. All right, I'll tell you what. I'll make it all Kansas rivalry. Kansas State. There we go for the conference championship game.
Oh, what?
The Sunflower Showdown.
No way. The world would end. It would explode if that was the championship game. The world would explode.
That's why it'll happen.
Oh, my
Would
gosh.
that be back-to-back weeks?
I think it would be a repeat. No?
It is a repeat, yes, but it's not back-to-back. Kansas State plays Kansas second last week in the season. So
That is crazy talk. Crazy talk.
All right.
You're asking me? I
Yep.
think it's Oklahoma, Kansas State.
Okay.
That's the chalk pick, I think.
Yep. All right. And just weirdly, even though I didn't pick them, I do like that Kansas at 40-1 to win the conference. There's just way too much value there.
that's
a lot.
wrong.
I'm actually going to grab that as soon as we're done here. So, all right.
Yeah.
Nathan, thank you so much. This was awesome. We appreciate it. We'll probably grab you through the season to check back with you. See if, especially how your first season in the Big 12 is going.
Great.
You've been very gracious, and we'll see how gracious you can be if you're 1-5 and hating life in the Big 12. But I don't think it'll happen. I think it'll be better than that.
You're right. It won't happen. BYU could go 0-12, and we'd still be. Look, this is a dream season for us. Everything that happens to BYU this year is going to be the greatest thing ever. And if you have a chance, if BYU gets on a roll, I would not bet against them. There is potential on this team. It's going to come down to Slovis. If he comes in and plays like he did the first year, 2019 at USC, look out.
Yeah.
BYU's got some amazing receivers and good running back room. And I think the defense is going to be completely changed. So we'll have to see. You're right, though. It could be a tough skate. So I appreciate you guys inviting me. Not a problem. This is the first time I've done anything like this before. So it probably went a little bit longer than I was told my wife was going to take.
I apologize for that.
We had a lot of fun. No. It was your Texas stuff, I think, that put us over the line.
No, that was therapeutic.
Yes, that's true.
All right.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Well, thank you, Nathan. Robert, we'll see you soon.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.
See everybody. You too. Yeah. Bye.